What was that? It's every single week this shit is happening at this point. Leicester City 2, Chelsea 0. Another crushing defeat against one of the top teams in the division. And before we get into anything, I have to just give Leicester the praise they deserve. They are streets above Chelsea. Streets better. They're an actual team. On paper you might look at it and say, well, Chelsea have better individuals. Doesn't matter a shit. And that's what last night, and that's what this season is proving to me, is that you can have all the best players in Europe if you want, but if you don't have a set plan, a set system, and if these players don't have any sort of understanding, it's going to be worth fuck all in the long run. Let's get into it then. Frank Lampard's lineup. Antonio Rudiger kept his place. I'd have to ask why. Reece James came back at right back. Jorginho was replaced by Kai Havertz. And Giroud is out with an injury, so there was a start for Tammy Abraham. And I was very happy to see Callum Hudson-Odoi also start with Hakim Ziyech dropping to the bench. And it did not take Leicester long to take the lead, Wilfred Ndidi. And we've got to talk about the defending for this corner, right? All Brighton goes out to take a corner. I don't know if it's Maddison or someone comes to claim the short corner off, and Pulisic follows him. At that point, whoever's at the near post, marking their man, I think it was Kai Havertz, should leave their man, pass it on. There was enough of them not marking people because of this zonal marking bullshit, which you already know my thoughts on. Havertz should go out and stop the 2-on-1 situation. Then you stop the cross, force them to go long into the box. Instead, they're allowed to try something from the training ground. It's a swing and a miss. Falls to Ndidi, rifles it home 1-0, and from that point I genuinely didn't believe that Chelsea were going to get anything out of this game from that point, because once we concede a goal, or once something goes against us, the tide goes against us, heads down, attitude gone out the window, we're finished. Oh, look, what can you do? Sort of thing, we're finished now, we might as well pack it in for the evening. Bullshit! We could have had a penalty before half time. Pulisic fouled by Johnny Evans, which turned out to be outside the box, a good call by VAR, and I literally said, now that something's gone against us, we're going to drop our heads, stop playing, and concede a second before half time. And lo and behold, what actually happened? Yeah? It's one ball from all Brighton, over the top. Rudiger misjudges it trying to mark Vardy. Reece James is so far out of position, it's untrue. And James Maddison with one of the easiest finishes of his life to make it 2-0, and the second half was just so completely leisurely for Leicester, so much to the point where Brendan Rodgers could actually afford to take off his best player on the night, James Maddison. Our fullbacks were absolutely destroyed. I've talked a lot about Ben Chilwell in the last couple of weeks, obviously back-facing his former team last night. Got absolutely destroyed by Mark Albrighton. It's one thing down the other end, at least Reece James is being destroyed by Harvey Barnes, someone who's a bit of, flair and a bit of pace about him. Ben Chilwell's being destroyed by Mark Albrighton. Like, come on, man. Like, just being done for pace. Time and time and time again. Being caught out of position. There was a couple of times where I've seen Pulisic come back and try to cover for Ben Chilwell. Not that Chilwell was gone forward or anything, because he's just out of position and he just didn't look like he was able to run to the point where he was actually able to get back. Leicester absolutely bossed the midfield. Tielemans, Ndidi, Maddison, I gotta give them all incredible credit. They fought for every single ball. They won every first ball and every second ball and every ball that was there to be got, to be perfectly honest with you, because Chelsea were just absolutely non-existent in there. Mateo Kovacic has had a horrific start to the season, and playing in the 6 last night, it's not really his position, the 6, but there's no excuse for stopping running and not putting a foot in. And that is exactly what Mateo Kovacic did time and time and time again last night. Same with Kai Havertz, who just absolutely floats through games. I'm convinced he's just not up to it, lads, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure if he went to somebody else, he'd probably absolutely rip it up. But he's been asked to do a bit of work in this Chelsea team, and he's not up to it. Our other midfield member was Mason Mount, who once again, despite having quite an off night, was actually the only player in that Chelsea team, I could say, that gave 100% and fought and ran and gave out to his teammates and ordered around until the very end. So Mason Mount, once again, the only one that gets any sort of praise, apart from Callum Hudson-Odoi, who was actually our only decent spark going forward, put in a few very good crosses into the box, but Tammy Abraham and Christian Pulisic were absolutely non-existent. Like, it was just so bad, so bad. What I found absolutely baffling about this Chelsea performance last night is the lack of understanding, the lack of communication between players. Like, it's one of the most basic things, right? You know, you should be able to know your teammates inside out, how they play, you know, what their tendencies are. These boys look like they never even fucking met before last night, let alone shared a football pitch for God knows how many games together. Alright, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there. For some reason the camera lens began to fog up after me recording the rest of the whole video, which is just mildly an inconvenience. But we're going to finish the rest of this video handheld, bit of a throwback like the good old days, huh? So yeah, before the camera lens fogged up, I was talking about understanding within the team. Like, just little things, like just no talking, no communication, no just basic understanding. Like, there's plenty of times yesterday where passes were going astray because they were expecting their teammate to be there. Like, Pulisic played one over the end line or the sideline at one stage because he was expecting Ben Chilwell to have made a run. There's another one where there's a ball over the top. Ben Chilwell or Mendy should just deal with it. Just a lot of indecisiveness, and in the end it was just a panicked clearance by Ben Chilwell. Like, just talk to each other, lads. Your teammates, talk to each other. I'm going to finish off talking about Frank Lampard then, and you guys know how much I love Frank, and I always will, no matter what happens during his managerial reign at Chelsea. But we joke about him not having a plan B when things aren't going well. The man doesn't even have a plan A at the minute. Like, let's be honest. Like, if there was a plan to last night's game against Leicester, I'd love to know what it is, because there was just absolutely nothing to get excited about in that game for Chelsea. It was always just the same pattern of play, passing the ball around the back line, maybe giving it into Kovacic who'll give it back. Going forward, we had absolutely nothing. Like, there was no urgency. Nobody even seemed to want to get on the ball, and when they did, it was, oh, can I find the safe pass? What's the safest route here that I won't give the ball away and, you know, get given out to for it, essentially. As bad as Antonio Rudiger was for that second goal, and for as much as I've questioned him being in the starting 11 at all, because he had a good performance against League 2 Morecambe, I will say this: he was actually the only player in the first half that actually tried to do something different when there was nothing going on. He tried to play the long balls, he tried to, you know, play those cutting passes through the Leicester defence, and one or two times it actually kind of came off for him. I still wouldn't say that I'm fully Lampard out, but he's not really showing me anything at the minute to suggest. And there probably is that bias there because he is a childhood hero and I love Frank so much. There probably is that bias, you know, that I want him to stay. But it's now getting to the point where he's not actually showing us anything. And it's not that he's not incapable of masterminding results and wins for Chelsea Football Club. Because, like, we've seen that last season a couple of times, in fact, against big clubs. Man United in the FA Cup semi-final. You think of, you know, doing the double home and away against Tottenham, the away win at Arsenal. Those were all great tactical performances by Frank Lampard as a manager. So it's clear to see that he's capable of coming up with a decent game plan. Recently, like in December and so far in January, he just looks like he's lost and he has no idea what he's doing. It's the manner of the defeat, for me, is the kicker. It's worse than the defeat itself. Because there was just no fight, no desire, no grit about us, we didn't look like we wanted it. Simple as. And as I said, there was only one or two players, Hudson-Odoi, Mason Mount, that looked like they wanted to even be there, let alone win. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Do you know what's funny about this, lads? For the first 15-20 minutes of the second half yesterday, do you know what I did? I didn't actually watch the game. It was on the telly, didn't watch it. Myself and Josh sat down and watched the 2015 Wembley Cup highlights. And honestly, it's the most fun I've had watching football in quite some time. And that is saying something. It was far more interesting to watch than Chelsea because we are just so predictable at this point. It's absolutely untrue. And as I said earlier on the video, once we went 1-0 down, I had no faith that we were going to get back into it. But that's where I'm going to wrap it up, lads. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. And yeah, I'll catch you later. Good luck.